Hello, I'm Dr. Natalie Johnson, and I'm going to be presenting on the theme of increasing opportunities to learn and raising expectations for all. Math matters. I am a former awardee of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching from 2017. I'm a retired high school mathematics teacher after over 20 years, and I am a former higher ed math chair. Currently, I'm serving as Senior Manager of Education and Public Engagement at Fermilab. The purpose of today's presentation is to take a serious look at global and historical math education data so that we can benchmark and inform future data locally and globally in efforts to raise awareness and resonance that increases math achievement for all U.S. students in more innovative ways. We'd like to make a positive difference by inspiring a sense of urgency and action towards math education for stakeholders across the U.S. So what we're going to do is take a look back at math education, both globally, domestically, and what we're going to talk about is what it all means. So globally, we're going to take a look at the PISA, which is the Program for International Student Assessment, and the U.S. standing, and why the math matters for all. Then we're going to look domestically at the National Assessment of Educational Progress data and math education across the U.S. They are known as the gold standard for math assessments domestically. We would like to take note of the persistent achievement gap between high-performing and low-performing students. What does it all mean? Do we keep doing the same thing and expect a different result? Do we look at innovative ways to inspire stakeholders to take more action in taking care of the entire village? How can we all leverage available resources, both globally and locally, to expand access and address ways to make math matter? When we take a look back at math education globally, from PISA, this is a study that is conducted every 3 years, and it's a worldwide evaluation by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development of 15-year-old students around the world, their scholastic performance on reading, math, and science, and the students' ability to apply knowledge to real-world scenarios that are conducted. This allows for benchmarking best practices. PISA also periodically takes a snapshot of unemployment trends and employment outlook in these OECD countries. And what we look at specifically are unemployment rates for those countries and the impact of the latest trends, such as artificial intelligence today on job markets. So when we look at the labor markets, we can see that the labor markets lost momentum, but then they held their ground. And we can look at the various countries, with the US being in a dark purple. Then when we look at labor vacancies versus online job postings, we can see that again, that the labor markets remain tight in many countries, even as pressure is easing. So then when we take a look back at math education in 2018, what PISA reported was that in 2018, the US is near the bottom, number 37 of the PISA math rankings, achieving a score of 478, scoring below the average for the other countries of 489 for math proficiency. To put it in perspective, China averaged 592 and the Dominican Republic averaged 326. So why does math matter? Global competitiveness, increased PISA rankings, and then stakeholders' purpose and responsibility. The overall worldwide rankings for PISA, because they measure also science and reading. The overall worldwide ranking shows the US coming in at number 25 in 2018 overall out of 79 countries. So what does that look like domestically? So when we take a look back at math education domestically in the US schools, in 2022, the NAEP scores showed that for 4th, 8th, and 12th grades, we see key points that are relevant to this report, specifically that COVID pandemic negatively impacted education at all levels. Math achievement gaps were calculated as the difference between the average scores of student subgroups. And then we can see that the scores for 4th and 8th grade averages for 1990 2019, and 2022. So we can see that while we increased in 2019 pre-pandemic, after the pandemic, there was a huge decline again for fourth and eighth grade students. For several decades, we must acknowledge, notice, and wonder about the persistent achievement gap in math between the lowest performing and highest performing student subgroups. We need to ponder what new and innovative approaches can be taken with a sense of urgency to actively address this less than desirable performance and achievement phenomenon. This is an example of the demographic data that shows the lowest and the highest performing students. It shows achievement gaps between these low performing and high performing groups. And this data on race and ethnicity are based on school reports. So from 1990 through 2022 for grades 4th and 8th, we can see that there is a benchmark. This includes students in public, private, Bureau of Indian Education, and Department of Defense education activity schools. What we're looking at here are the achievement levels and performance standards that describe what students should know and be able to do based on NAEP. NAEP has 3 levels of measurement. One is basic, which indicates partial mastery of fundamental skills, proficient, which indicates competency over challenging subject matter, and then advanced, which indicates superior performance beyond NAEP proficiency. The assessment was not conducted for grades 12 in 2022 due to the pandemic. So what I'm going to show you in the next couple of slides is a view of 4th grade and 8th grade patterns in NAEP math scores by race and ethnicity. And you will see for 4th grade and 8th grade that they are similar to those observed in both grade levels. So this is 4th grade by demographic group, pre and post pandemic. And this is 8th grade. 4th grade, 8th grade. Now, when we get to our 12th grade students, we can only look at pre-COVID 2015 versus 2019. And that is because our most recent assessments for 12th grade were conducted before the pandemic. The average math score in 2019 was the highest for Asian students, coming in at 175, followed by white students at 159, and students of 2 or more races at 157. A look back at math education, what does it all mean? It means that do we look at innovative ways to inspire students or stakeholders, students, teachers, administrators, and community stakeholders to take more action in taking care of the entire village? As previously mentioned, the goal of this presentation is to raise awareness of the current standing and to address the declining math achievement of our nation's students through the various stakeholders, hopefully in innovative ways so that we can address interventions, innovations, and emerging resources used both globally and domestically. Then when we talk about increasing the opportunities to learn, we are only as good as our lowest common denominator. It is widely known that a persistent achievement gap between the lowest end performing students and highest performing students has prevailed for several decades, and it has been exacerbated by the negative effects of COVID. Utilizing current research, we can provide more sense-making based instruction for students to model and communicate their findings in the math classroom. We would like to change the narrative to facilitate the shift of agency of learning, modeling, and communicating math in the classroom away from teachers and onto students. So when we talk about raising expectations for all, and I specifically talk about stakeholders, I am specifically addressing students, parents, teachers, school administrators, community stakeholders, and our U.S. Department of Education. For students, Hall reported in 2023 that 22% of high school respondents from an EAB survey of approximately 20,000 plus students say that they were not ready for college emotionally and academically, compared with 14% in 2019. It must be noted that the percentages are higher for first-generation low-income students, 29%. Use of progressive evidence-based frameworks to meet the needs of diverse learners may help students develop mathematical reasoning skills and communication skills to solve problems while justifying their thinking. Things such as concrete representational abstract framework, which consists of 3 levels of learning. We have concrete modeling, representational, and abstract, where students are able to generalize and apply the concepts. The other framework is concrete pictorial abstract. This is a framework that emphasizes a visual model and verbal models, where students use physical objects to model a concept and verbal explanations to support their reasoning and communication. Students can use the aforementioned frameworks to develop math discourse and argumentation, to justify reasoning and critique the reasoning of others. Remember that it takes a village to be successful, and students have a viable role in that village. From a parental standpoint, we should develop a narrative that provides students with a positive outlook of, I can do math. There is nothing genetic about mathematics saying that I didn't like math, so my child is not going to like math. We need to encourage math enrichment year-round by engaging in relevant learning and practical practices that require students to apply math concepts learned to help reinforce classroom learning. We need to request resources, ask for resources from our math teachers and librarians that can assist in helping students to apply the knowledge that they've learned in the classroom to the real world. We want to engage in math conversations with your child or with our children to show that we are interested in what they are learning and can do in mathematics. We want to support teachers in changing the narrative and facilitating the shift of agency of learning, modeling, and communicating math in the classroom away from teachers and onto students. Remember, once again, it takes a village to be successful, and that many hands make light work. Parents are needed to support both students and teachers. From a teacher perspective, with students, we want to establish classroom norms that will drive student agency and encourage student growth. To close the digital divide, we want to consider surveying students in different ways. Provide multiple options for students to engage, such as text, audio, video, imagery. Provide multiple ways for students to demonstrate knowledge, such as writing, speaking, performing, or choosing various platforms such as PowerPoint, Google Slides, or Google Docs, Flipgrids, or email. We want to use progressive evidence-based frameworks to meet the needs of diverse learners, to help students develop mathematical reasoning skills and communication skills to solve problems while justifying their thinking. Again, such as those concrete representational abstract framework or the pictorial abstract framework. We want to create assessments that are valid, reliable, and fair, and align with state standards and district guidelines. That means that the content, the skills, and the competency-based information is appropriate for each grade level. We want to become familiar with state and district standards, using rubrics to assess student learning. We want to vary the methods of assessments, make it project-based, allow students to turn in essays to explain their thinking, create portfolios, perform self-assessments, presentations, quizzes, or tests. Align assessments with the standards in terms of rigor, depth, and complexity, intentionally noting format, style, and language. And we want to review and revise assessments for desired outcomes and improvement. And lastly, we want to invest in professional development to close gaps in progressive strategies to increase student learning and grow our own pedagogy. From a school administrator's perspective, we might consider boot camps and bridge programs to help students to shift their mathematical thinking and attitude. We want to increase the narrative and messaging to students. We want to say to them, you are not alone in balancing socio-emotional challenges with academic success. We want to increase the messaging to our teachers and staff that they too are not alone in balancing the social emotional challenges with student growth and success. We want to support teachers in professional development opportunities to grow their pedagogy and improve student learning. We want to support families by providing optimal opportunities to engage students and their families in ways that are relevant and meaningful to support student learning. We would wish to reward teachers and staff who are consistently achieving positive results and improvements in the classroom. We have a simple thing to do, which is to ask our teachers and our staff about relevant ways to recognize them for achieving desired outcomes in student learning and growth. We want to continually evaluate the effectiveness of changes to continuously improve processes and maintain communication with teachers, staff, and community stakeholders. We want to encourage student advocacy at the local, state, and national levels to raise awareness of student needs and successes within your building, the district, and the state. We want to encourage applying for grants to close the achievement gaps in funding to support student learning and growth. We would like for administrators to visit the teacher classrooms and provide feedback. We want to commend those who are doing the heart and the hard work and making gains towards student improvement. And then we want to share those successes from your building, both internally and externally. Remember, it takes a village to be successful, and that many hands make light work. For our community stakeholders, we ask that you partner with schools within the community and provide ways to engage students as active learners. Provide for practical student experiences and meaningful opportunities. Proactively provide expectations for student learners and proactively provide feedback for student engagement and continuous improvement. We would like that you maintain high touch points and communications with students, families, and school partners. And again, like with the other stakeholders, remember that it takes a village to be successful and that many hands make light work. So when we talk about raising expectations for all, then we land on the Department of Education. We will ask that you announce and recognize the Presidential Awardee for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching awardees and state finalists on an annual and predictable basis. We would like for you to model the change that you want to see in our educators and our administrators. Develop and implement more technology and access for students and families in rural areas. Increase marketing and advertisement of positive messaging for current and future math educators. Improve and increase marketing campaigns for recognizing the importance and value of attracting and retaining highly qualified and effective math educators in all areas of the country. And finally, place an emphasis on ensuring that quality education for even the lowest common denominator within all communities is as important for all communities. In terms of education reform, it is widely known that zip codes are strong predictors for success or failure of students in the U.S. schools. It is still important to attract the most talented teachers to the most challenging classrooms. There is a dire need for all stakeholders throughout the communities and the schools to pull together and innovatively address the needs of math education domestically and globally, because students, teachers, families, school administrators, community stakeholders, and the economic stability all matters. By attending to the social, emotional needs and career aspirations of our students, we can make a positive difference. Making a positive difference by inspiring a sense of urgency and call to action towards math education for all stakeholders, primarily our students, is the right thing to do towards increasing opportunities to learn and raising expectations for all, because ultimately math still matters. Thank you. International assessments. Oh, sure. So hopefully you can hear me. In terms of international assessments, what they add to this conversation is the process of global competitiveness. So what we want to do is to make sure that as we are preparing students for careers or for further education, that they are able to be sustained at the next level, whatever that is for them, and that they are able to be top performers. So the international assessment or PISA is very important, because we always want to make sure that we are leveraging or comparing how we're doing on a fair assessment, not only with ourselves, but also on a global stage. Hopefully that helps. So another way of thinking about that is leveraging best practices. We always want to make sure that we're not just comparing ourselves amongst ourselves, because that's assuming that we are the best that we can be, when there are clearly competitors that are prevalent across the world. I wanted to also point out that the Hechinger report, which is a research-based education research facility, put out a report today that talks about the importance of employer competitiveness and how the U.S. should be concerned about being able to compete globally. So that is a follow-up to this report that I was using from 2019 that talked about the international rankings and what they tell us about U.S. schools. So it's important to read about what's happening around you, but it's also important to understand the global aspect of that. Oh, absolutely. It is important to get behind the headlines and see where the biggest changes occurred and for whom. Oh, now I see the question. Sorry about that. So as it pertains to the role of formative and summative assessments, I think that those are valid and important. We try our best to get away from testing, and we know that at the college level, formative and summative assessments are important. And so we have to allow our students to have that experience before they get to college in order for them to be successful. As much as people, hate testing, standardized testing, and so forth and so on, it is a norm in college, and we cannot shy away from it because our students will not be prepared. I would also like to ask that you ask, for those of you who are teachers, if you will not ask in your building of your administrators, what are we doing to ensure that our students are ready for global competitiveness? Are the strategies that we're using going to help or hurt them? As it pertains to testing or assessing, you have to be able to assess the knowledge. Students need to be able to communicate. All of those things are important. And how are we doing that across multiple disciplines, especially in math? It is important to not only use your critical thinking, but to also communicate your thinking to others. So how are we doing that? And, what strategies are you using on a consistent basis to ensure that our students have those skills in justifying their answer? And that's important whether you're in Algebra 1 or calculus. It doesn't matter. Communicating is important. Written communication as well as oral communication. Well, hopefully you've heard something here today that, if nothing else, it motivates your spirit of inquiry and your ability to take action at the various stakeholder levels, whether you're a teacher, a parent, a tutor, a legislator, someone who can influence others in towards helping students to be successful, not only in the classroom, but beyond, to help them to be successful in their careers or in the next level of education if they prefer to do that. Or if they prefer to go into technical careers right out of high school, all those kinds of things. There are a certain set of skills that are important for them, no matter what their choice is beyond high school. So it's important that we as educators equip our students with the best tools possible so that they can perform the best on at their next level, whatever that is. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day, and please go out and take some action. Math matters.